Welcome back to the Soul Podcasting Podcast, where we help creatives, solopreneurs, and CEOs unlock their voice, lead with purpose, and build podcasts that don't just sound good, but actually shift culture. I'm your host, Demetria Zinga, and y'all, we are having a CEO level conversation today because I'm seeing something in this space right now, which is a lot of beautiful, soulful podcast shows that are being launched, but too many of us are leaving the bigger opportunity on the table. And I'm just going to say it plain, there is a difference between having a show and owning a platform. If you're ready to not just record into a mic, but lead a movement, this episode is going to get you thinking bigger, bolder, and more strategically. And if this hits home, I want you to DM me on Instagram at Soul Podcasting. I'd love to hear what shifts for you as you listen today. Before we start though, if you're in launch mode, relaunch mode, or you've got a show but you want to tighten it up and bring more flow to your process, make sure that you download my Launch Confidently Podcasting Checklist. It's going to give you the clarity and the next steps you need, and that link is waiting for you in the show notes. Now, before we dive in, you know how I like to do it. I always like to set the mood for the conversations we have on this show. And I know that your life is full and you're probably juggling business and clients and content or even kids, all the things, right? Family life, work life. I understand. But here's what I've learned as a woman building multiple platforms. Transformation happens when you give yourself space to receive. So I always want this podcast, this little window of time, to be your intentional space. So I always invite you to grab a favorite drink, whether it's your iced latte or your herbal tea or some good old sparkling water or coffee, whatever you like. And if you can, grab a notebook. And why do I always say that? Because when you write things down, they become real. They start to move from your ideas into action. And today's conversation is one where I want you dreaming, visioning, and taking notes on how you can step deeper into platform ownership. Okay, real talk, my friends. Having a podcast show is beautiful. Okay, you show up, you serve, you publish. But that's already more than most people ever will do. So that's why I always applaud anyone who ever takes the risk, and I call it a risk, to create a show, to put yourself out there, and to do something that you feel is worthwhile for you and for your audience. But too often, I do see us staying stuck at this level. The level of, we have a show, but are we building a platform? Maybe not. And that is what I want to focus on right now. And here's the difference between a show and a platform. A show is just about the content, right? But a platform is about connection. In a show, you put out your episodes every week, every other week, every month, but a platform helps you to pull people together and deeper into your world. A show can live on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but a platform lives in the hearts and the minds of your audience, and it actually moves them into action. You kind of see the difference there? It's a rather big difference in my eyes. I see such a distinction between these two things. So if you want your work to last a long time, if you want to build a legacy, if you want influence, if you want even an income, you need to think bigger than just your show. You need to become the kind of voice that your audience returns to again and again, follows, buys from, tells their friends about you. And that means you have to think about a couple of things. One is your brand positioning, and then your leadership voice, your ecosystem, which is not just your episodes, and your visibility across all of these other spaces. So when you own a platform, you're not just recording a show, you're building trust, you're building community and pathways that lead to deeper engagement with your audience. Now, speaking of building with intention, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, Demetria, I want my podcast to feel more professional, more cohesive, so it can truly support my platform. Well, that's exactly what we help with at Soul Podcasting Collective. So whether you need podcast editing, launch strategy, SEO show notes, repurposing your content for social media, we've got you, my friend. Because when your back-end systems are solid and your content is showing up powerfully across platforms, that is when your podcast starts working for your brand, not just sitting on the shelf. So I'd love for you to head over to soulpodcasting.com to learn more, and let's make your podcast support your platform. All right, now how do you shift into platform ownership mode? I'm going to break that down to you. The first thing you want to do is start with your mindset. Platform owners think about things such as, what's the experience that I'm creating for my listener? Like, how am I building trust every single time I show up on this show? And where else can I be visible and present outside of this podcast? So that can come in the form of your blog or your social media presence. How does the show connect with my offers and my greater mission? When you ask yourself these questions, you're really broadening the horizon of what your podcast is really doing, right? It's so much more than its own little island. It is part of a bigger ecosystem. So essentially, it's about being strategic with your content. Like, when you own a platform, you're not just publishing episodes to fill up your schedule. Anybody could get busy in the hamster wheel of content creation, but that's not what you're doing. You're creating episodes that move your audience toward a transformation and toward you as a trusted leader. That's why I believe podcasting is really about leadership. You're also repurposing by taking an episode and turning it into those reels and carousels and email content and short form video, all those things. And you speak on stages, right? Maybe you're going to start speaking on stages. Maybe this is something that you're planning to step into in the future. So you're repurposing your content, not just for social media, but even perhaps for speaking to broader and wider audiences, bigger audiences. And then also you want to repurpose for creating deeper offers, meaning programs that you're creating, courses, and you build a brand identity so that when someone lands on your podcast page, your Instagram or your website, they feel the same energy that they do when they're listening to your show. So that is what a platform is. It's not just your podcast, which is an island to itself. Instead, it's a platform that includes your podcast as part of, again, I keep using this word, but the grander scheme of things or the ecosystem of your entire brand. So really, this is about making sure that you understand what branding is and how marketing has a part to play in that, and how podcasting falls into this whole bigger scenery of your brand that you're building online. So when I say building a legacy, that's what I mean. I'm not advocating for being a quote unquote content creator for the sake of it. I really would love for each and every one of us who are creating podcasts to do this with a sense of purpose and create a platform that our podcast is a part of. And as we look at our podcasting in that way, it takes on a different flavor. So now we're no longer on the hamster wheel. We're no longer just churning out content just to keep up every single week, but we actually have a purpose for why we're doing it. And we're keeping track of what's going on in our business, in our organization, and we're able to see how that podcast is helping. And then we can even track the ROI at some point. Once you get to that point where you feel that tracking your actions and tracking your stats is viable for you. And maybe you're starting off just as a content creator that's enjoying the process and you're not really worried about making any money with it. You're not really worried about creating a brand, and that's okay too, right? We all start where we start, and we all have different reasons why we're podcasting. But for those of you who are doing this in CEO mode and you really want to make this a part of your business, then I would love to help you with those strategies. So here's where I want you to move from listening to taking action. So this week you can take about, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes and reflect on a couple of these questions. Ask yourself, how am I currently showing up? This is what you ask yourself. How am I currently showing up? Am I showing up as a content creator or as a platform owner? The second thing you want to ask yourself is, what would need to shift in how I plan, how I produce and promote my podcast to really truly serve my platform? What is it I need to do to shift things around in my planning, production, and promotion so that I'm serving my audience better? And the third question that you can ask yourself is, how can I start building more pathways from my podcast into deeper connection? And that connection could be in the form of email lists, or maybe a community, or some type of a group, maybe a social media group, Facebook group, or any offers you have, any services you're providing. How can you go from podcasts to those deeper connections? One example of what I'm doing here on this show is every single time I have a show, I always invite you guys to come over to Instagram and follow me there. I always invite you to either follow me on YouTube or to join my mailing list or download a free resource that I have available for you. And that gets you deeper into community with me so that I can have you on my mailing list and reach out to you with emails and keep in touch with you. Or I can follow you on one of my social medias and we can keep the conversation going. So here's the simplest place to start. You want to pick one step. Maybe that's repurposing this week's episode into an Instagram carousel. Maybe it's writing an email based on your latest episode. I've been doing that more often. These days, I try to send out an email about twice a week. And that first email is typically just a note to my list to let them know that a new episode has arrived and to share that with them. So maybe that's what you want to start doing if you haven't already. Or maybe you want to refine your CTA, your call to action, to bring people deeper into your world. So these small steps, they compound. And over time, this is how you own a platform. It's a lot of things. It's not just one thing. It's several things. And it doesn't have to be all the things either. So you don't have to worry about all of the different aspects of having a platform. Just start with a few things at a time and work your way into building that platform and broadening your influence with all of these different aspects. Again, there's your podcast, but there's also your website. There's also your email list. There's also your social media. There's also SEO for your podcast or SEO for your website and your social media. There's different components and pieces of marketing that make up the whole system of your platform, of which your podcast is just a part of, and hopefully a large part of that. And then if you're also a YouTuber and you like showing up on video, there's another component to the system that you've created to make your platform. So your platform can be managed in a lot of different ways that you have to figure out what's best for you in this time of your life, in this season of your life, what's manageable for you, what's doable for you. Focus on that and focus on getting better at it, making it a thing for you, for your listeners, for your viewers, for your audience. And also make sure that you're able to do this joyfully and with ease. I'm not saying it's going to be super easy and that you won't need help, but hopefully you will be able to do the work and manage the work with ease by bringing in the help that you need when you need it. So listen, you guys, your voice is so powerful. I believe that your podcast is powerful. And if you want to build legacy, brand authority, and lasting impact, you've got to own that bigger vision. So stop settling for just having a show. You're more than that. Your work is so much more than just a podcast. A podcast by itself is a great deal. It's a huge accomplishment. But this week, I'm inviting you to show up and lead and think like a platform owner. And if you want support, whether it's strategy, editing, or content repurposing, please visit soulpodcasting.com. We would love to help you to build with soul and strategy, to help you with your podcast audio and video edits. And as always, you can DM me at Soul Podcasting and tell me what resonated with you today. I love hearing your voice and seeing how this community grows. Your voice is your platform, my friend. Your soul is your strategy. And let's build something beautiful. Until next time, happy podcasting.